Hello and welcome to the Dragons Are Real podcast. Now, for some inexplicable reason, people are looking at trying some alternatives to 5th edition D&D. They want to give some other systems a try, and so I thought I would make one suggestion out there. And today I'm going to be talking about 13th Age. So what is 13th Age? 13th Age is a game by Rob Henshaw and Jonathan Tweet, who are both involved with previous editions of D&D. And they've gone about creating their own version of what D&D would be after 4th edition. This is what their idea is going to be. Now, 13th Age all centres around the icons. These are 13 movers and shakers in the world of the Empire. And you've got some good guys, you've got some bad guys, and you've got some neutral guys. At low levels, the players will be interacting with the organisations that these icons run, and as they go up in level, they get higher and more powerful, then they may be well interacting with these icons themselves and become friends or enemies of them. So the main good icons in 13th Age is the Emperor, who is the ruler of the kingdom, the Priestess, which is one of his religious people, the Archmage, who is in charge of wizardry for the Empire, and the Great Gold Worm, which is of the inspiration for the Holy Orders. Then we have the bad guys, people like the Diabolist, the Orc Lord, the Lich King, Prince of Shadows, and then we have some neutral ones like the Elf Queen, the Dwarf Lord. So the whole game centres around these icons, and this can be a bit confusing for people when they first start the game, but these are sort of hooks to get the players invested in the whole system, and we'll come up to some of the highlights and lowlights of using icons as we go along. So, what is 13th Age? Well, it's a D20 system, and if you've played any D&D, a lot of this is going to sound quite familiar. You have levels, races, classes, all the stuff that you're used to in normal D20 based games. The races available to you are your normal tropes: human, dwarf, elf, a gnome, half-elf, halfling, half-orc. And we've got the core classes of barbarian, bard, cleric, fighter, paladin, ranger, rogue, sorcerer and wizard. Just like any D20 system, you've got your 6 attributes, and these range anywhere from 8 to 18, and they also have a modifier just like you do in other editions of D&D. The hit points for a character in 13th Age is higher than in other D&D games, and there's only 10 levels, and each level in 13th Age is equivalent to about 2 levels in 5th edition. Each character has an armour class, a physical defence and a mental defence. Now, one core thing with 13th Age is your level. And as I said, there's 10 levels, and this level gets added to a host of roles and abilities. Instead of proficiency modifiers, you are going to be adding your level to every attack roll you make. So the higher level you are, the better your roll is going to be. You're also going to add it to your initiative. It also gets added to your armour class, so every time you level up, your armour class gets a bit better. And it also adds to your physical defence and mental defence. Physical defence is a defence usually against magic for physical type spells, and mental defence is again a defence against spells that attack the mind. Instead of hit dice that are used to get better, they have recoveries, and most characters start with 8 recoveries. We have backgrounds and one unique thing also in your characters. Your one unique thing is a role-playing prompt, and it's there to tell you the one thing that's unique about your character that's different from the rest of the world. So it might be that you are the best swordsman in the whole of the Empire, and that is your unique fact. Nobody else is better than you. I mentioned the icons earlier. Well, you also have relationships with these icons. They can be conflicted, they can be positive, and they can be negative. And at the beginning of each session, you roll the number of points you put into your icon relationship, and if it's a 5 or 6, it tells the GM that there's going to be some interaction with one of those icons or one of those icons organizations in this game. Besides class feats, there are also a host of other general feats that the characters can gain, and each of the feats can be a single feat, or it can have certain tiers which make it more powerful. And the tiers are Adventurer tier, Champion tier, and Epic tier, and these boost each of these general feats. When it comes to the races, each of the races has +2 in 2 of their attributes, and they usually have an associated feat. So for example, humans are quick to fight. Basically they roll their initiative dice twice and take the best result. And each of the races has has a feat that is unique to them. When it comes to classes, base HP for all classes is either 6, 7 or 8. The armor class can range in the region of 10 to 16, and for each of the classes it lists their ability bonus, their initiative, their armor class, their defense, both physical and mental, their hit points, recoveries. Now, some things to notice is that when it comes to damage, you're dealing 1 dice of damage per level. So if you normally do 1d8 damage and you add your strength modifier, your 3rd level you'll be rolling 3d8 plus your strength modifier. So levels does make a big difference in this game. For each class there is a list of typical armor they would wear, the typical melee weapons they would use, range weapons they would use. As another D20 games, depending on the weapon, the damage will be somewhere between a D4 and a D10 or stroke D12. Each of the classes has their own features, and then they have tier talents as well, which as you go through the levels you can increase these talents. Each of the classes is very unique. There's a lot more powers, there appears to be. And if it's anything, I'd say this is more like a 4th edition that has been simplified or made easier to run. For the spell classes, there's a list of spells, and a lot of these spells, as you get the spell level gets higher on the same spell, then they get more powerful. So damage can increase, healing can increase as the levels of the spells are higher. When it comes to spells and to feats, some of them are at will, so they can be done multiple times. Some spells and feats can be used a certain number of times per battle. Some are daily. Some of the classes, like Fighter, they have what they call flexible attacks. So you basically roll your attack first, and then you look at at your list of flexible attacks, and depending on what you've rolled, you can choose a maneuver or a flexible attack. So it may be that if you're rolling an even number, you can pick a flexible attack. If you rolled a high number, you can pick a different flexible attack. If you miss, you can pick another different flexible attack, and you can only use one of these at a time, but it gives the fighter player an option, a menu of attacks they can do, and they don't have to choose what they're doing until they actually roll the dice, which is rather nice. Okay, so when it comes to combat, it's your typical D20 system. You roll your initiative at the beginning of a round, and the turn order stays the same while the combat continues. When you attack, you're rolling your ability bonus, whether it be strength for fighting, dexterity for range attack, and your level. You try to equal or beat the armor class, the physical defense, or the mental defense of the target. Weapons roll 1 die of damage per character level, plus you add your ability modifier as well to that. And when it comes to distances, then in 30th Age, they're all abstracted. So you've got in combat, nearby, and you've got far. No measuring of grids in this game. On your turn, you can take 1 standard action, 1 move action, 1 quick action, and any number of free actions. And at the end of your turn, you make any saves. Standard actions are usually things like striking with a weapon, shooting a weapon. A move, you can move nearby, so somewhere you can see on the battlefield. And quick actions are usually from your talents. Free actions are general things you can do, like a torch, sheath a weapon, draw a weapon. If you have a condition, then that condition, an ongoing condition, then at the start of your turn, that condition will apply. And then at the end of your turn, you can try and make a save to see if that condition goes away. If it doesn't, the next turn, the ongoing condition is going to apply to your character. To see whether a condition is ongoing, you do a save. And in this game, a save is a natural d20 roll. And if you rolled 11 or more, then you succeed. A 10 or less, and you fail. And that applies to whether it's a save for damage or it's a save for ongoing conditions. Now, one thing that they have done, which is rather nifty, is in a combat they have an escalation dice, which is a d6. And on the first round of combat, this escalation dice is at a 0. On the second round of combat, it increases by 1 to the one side of the dice, and for all PCs, you add this 1 to all of your rolls. On the third round of combat, this increases to 2, and you add 2 to all your attack rolls. So as the combat goes on, you are getting more powerful because you're adding another modifier to all your rolls to try and keep the combats short. This maxes out on the 7th round as 6, which is the 6-sided dice, and you're adding plus 6 to all your attack rolls. If you are in combat and you wish to get away from someone, then you have two choices. You can move away from them, whether they get an opportunity attack against you, or you can try and disengage. And to disengage, you roll a save, and if you roll 11 or more, you get away from the disengage from the combat without an opportunity attack. You do your move and can continue any standard actions. If you fail in your save, then you are stuck in combat with a person. You can still take your normal actions, but you just can't move. Other things you can do in combat, you can spend your standard action to make a rally. And basically a rally is that you're making a recovery. You're spending one of your recovery dice, you're rolling it and adding your hit points back onto your health. Now, if you've already made a rally once in the battle, the next time you want to try and do it, you've got to make a normal save, 11 plus. If you succeed, you can do a rally again, provided you've got enough recovery dice to spend. There are no modifiers for combat. It's kept very simple. You're making your attacks and then you're rolling your damage if you do so. Natural 20 is a crit and it doubles all damage. Fumbles have no mechanical effect. They can have a narrative effect if the GM so wishes, unless it's firing into a combat. If you're firing into a melee and one of your allies is there and you roll a natural 1, then you have to make an attack roll against your colleague. Some classes and some weapons actually do apply damage on a miss, and it's usually something like a low number, so it could be your level and hit points. So you roll your attack, you miss, and your third level you'll deal 3 damage to your enemy. So there is some sort of that's accomplished even with your attacks. You're doing something minimal. As I said, when it comes to recoveries, it's like spending hit dice in 5th edition, and there are a number of conditions that characters can have. Some add negative modifiers to them, and others, like staggered, is a condition which doesn't actually do a lot, but there are talents that can apply if an enemy is staggered. And staggered means that the enemy or the PC is at half or less of their hit point total. When it comes to death and dying, as traditional in D20 games, when you get down to 0, you do a death save. The death save in this game is 16 plus, it's a hard save. And if you succeed, then you pop up back, make a recovery, and you're healthy. If you roll 15 or less, you're 1 step towards the grave. And if you fail your 4th death save, you haven't been stabilised or healed by one of your colleagues, then your character is dead. At the end of a battle, you can take a quick rest, which a quick rest recovers some of your per battle talents or spells, and it also allows you to use as many recoveries as you want to heal your character. For long rests, which is called full heal ups, then these should be roughly 4 once per day and roughly 4 battles, and that resets your hit points, covers all of your powers. There is a comprehensive section on running the game for GMs, how to use the icons, how to deal combat, how to build battles, all the sort of stuff you would expect in a GM section. Now, when it comes to monsters, monsters have greatly been simplified. If you're used to playing Pathfinder or 5e, then these are a lot simpler rules. You can have mooks, which are your low-level monsters, and for each multiple of damage that you cause on a mook, the damage follows through to the next one. So if you had a goblin with 5 hit points and you did 10 hit points, 10 damage, the first 5 would go on the first one, kill him, and the next 5 would go onto the second one and kill them. So you can sort of jump through these mooks nice and quickly. When it comes to monsters, their monster card is quite condensed when you look at a 5th edition monster card. So let's take a look at one. So when you have a monster, the details you get are the level, what type they are, whether they're a mook, whether they're a troop or they're a beast, their size, and their initiative dice, initiative modifier. Then you come to the attack, and it tells you what type of attack it is and how many, what the modifier is to that attack, and it uses static damage. So for example, a direwolf, if it hits on a bite, which is a +8, it causes 18 damage. It also tells you whether you're rolling against the armor class, physical defense or mental defense. And then you have their special abilities. Your stat block for the creature is its armor class value, its physical defense value, its mental defense value, and its hit points. That's all you need. So there's a good host of creatures here, from wolves, goblins, spiders, demons, dragons, all the common stuff here. But if you look at the stat blocks, whereas in the 5th edition of Pathfinder you might find 1 or 2 creatures on a page, then this can fit 2 or 3 creatures on a normal page. For example, a large red dragon is a quarter of a page. At the end of the bestiary section, it tells you how to build your own monsters, how to work out their initiative, how to work out their abilities, what the baseline stats should be depending on their levels for normal monsters, for mooks, for large or double strength monsters, for huge or triple strength monsters. There's tables for each of those in there, so you can design your own monsters quite easily. Then at the back of the book we have the history of the Dragon Empire, a map. It tells you all about the different parts of the empire, the history if you want to go into it. So the fluff is all at the back, and then we got some magic items for you to choose from. There's also an introductory adventure called Blood and Lightning, which shows you what an adventure looks like. It's a goblin fight, so some nice easy goblins to fight, and it shows you how to put the adventure together. And then it finishes off with, at the back, so an index and glossary. So I've played 13th Age. A lot of it is very similar to 5th edition. If you've played 5th edition before, then you've got a heads up, because it's the D20 roll and you're adding modifiers. But there's enough little quirks there that it can throw you. Combat is definitely faster. Running monsters for a GM is definitely a lot easier because the stat blocks are a lot smaller. I've not played 4th edition, although I've read it, but people that have told me that have played 4th edition this is the 4th edition that they would play now. It's got a lot of similarities with it, but it's been condensed down, it's been simplified. So yes, that's 13th Age. If you want to try something a bit different, then 13th Age is an alternative to 5e. They are working on a 2nd edition, but it doesn't look as if that's going to be out next year, so still a good time to jump in. The 2nd edition will be compatible with 1st edition. From what I can gather, they're looking at the feats and talents for the classes. I think they're trying to simplify the icons because that has been a bit of a stumbling block for people that have come new to it. They don't quite understand it. So they're trying to simplify that a bit, or maybe not simplify, but explain it better. So that's 13th Age. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll catch you all on the flip side.